In this short class I want to talk about business in its environment. I want to look at the various components in the environment that impinge upon the business, that influence the business and can ultimately determine whether the business will be successful or not. So I'm going to do it in terms of simple Venn diagrams and simple charts so we can see it pictorially. First of all, we start with the organization, the board of directors, the managers and the employees. So that is the organization. That's what we're concerned with. Now, the organization exists in the operating environment. And by that we mean that there are government agencies and administrators. So the organization produces a product, but it must meet the requirements of the legal system. The product must be legal, it must be produced in a safe and honest manner. The government will see that the organization pays tax and treats its workers appropriately. So we have the operating environment. And the operating environment has many aspects to it. For example, the operating environment also includes the suppliers. They're not part of the organization, they're outside, but they also have their objectives and they also have their ways of working. So they're a part of the environment in which the business works. The business depends on them, and the business must look towards the suppliers for its requirements for production and also for its long-term stability and future. There are also competitors in the environment, companies who are producing similar products and looking to take over that part of the market. Companies who want to dominate the market and sell more and look after themselves. But they are competitors, and it's the function of the organization that we're considering to outcompete them, to make a better product, make it cheaper and better satisfy customer needs. There may also be unions, which are combinations of workers. Workers join the trade unions to protect their interests. So the unions are in the environment, and the unions must be dealt with by management. So the unions have a set of objectives and the management may have a different set of objectives, and there may be conflict between them. So the unions may want more holidays for the workers or higher levels of remuneration. The organization doesn't want to pay more, or it doesn't want to have more holidays, or whatever. There is the potential for conflict between the two sides. There are also financial intermediaries who may be involved in the business or has an interest in the business. The banking system, for example, will be interested in the success of the business because it brings business to the banks. The business has a bank account and will have a payroll function which may be administered through the bank and so on. So the banks and the insurance companies, perhaps if the business insures a lot of products or insures the premises or whatever, these financial intermediaries also have an interest in the business. The local community has an interest in the business, how the business conducts itself, how it gets involved with the local community. Does it sponsor charity events or sports events, or does it congest the roads, or does it pollute the atmosphere? The local community have an interest in the business, as do activist groups. Perhaps it's making a product which might be controversial, and activist groups may be interested interested in scrutinizing the business and making sure that it's produced ethically and its behavior is not offensive to some groups. So there may be activist groups involved in watching the business as well. And then we've got customers, of course. The customers are obviously interested in the business because they buy the product. They're interested in security of supply. They're interested in using the product. So the customers are interested in the business. And that's, if you like, the operating environment. Now there's a broad environment, a much wider environment, again, which the business must take into account. There may be socio-cultural forces. There may be changes in society, changes that make the product perhaps obsolete, or there may be cultural changes that changing cultural base of society means the product is no longer required because it does not meet the requirements of that cultural segment. So there may be socio-cultural forces in play that the organization must take into account as well. And there may be global economic forces. For example, the banking crisis. The organization must be interested in what happened in the banking crisis. Security of banking is very important. But also global forces in the sense of trading patterns. The government in the country may have a new trading agreement with another country, which previously it didn't have, and now producers in that country may export into the country where the organization is. So there may be increased competition because of changes in global conditions, global economic forces. So the organization has to watch the patterns of trade and the forces leading to global change that may affect the business. And there are global political and legal forces. For example, formation of trading blocs like the European Union. The forces within the European Union may affect the business. Forces which say that businesses should behave in certain ways, or businesses ought not to do the following, or workers should be protected by law according to some rule issued by the central bloc. Now, the point here is that the organization should be aware of these and should be able to cope with them, should have a strategy to cope with these. So as we can see, the organization has got many influences. It's got many parts to consider within the operating environment and also within the broad environment, the much wider environment. It's not working alone. It's not an independent organization just producing a product. It has many influences looking at it. And that's what I want to do in this session, is simply show the background to the organization and show the influences on the organization and emphasize the point that it's not a single entity working alone. It doesn't have that freedom. It must take into account all of the other forces that are acting upon it. And that's all I want to do in this class, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.